G'day folks, it's Phil from 15 Minute Guitar Practice here. Today we're going to be looking at playing the changes just using the minor blues scale. Now firstly, what does playing the changes mean? You might have heard it called playing the changes, you might have heard it called outlining the chords, you might have also heard it called chord tone soloing. So what is that exactly? Well, what it means is your choice of notes matches the chord that's being played at that moment. So if we were to play an A7 chord, your choice of notes to solo would be selected from the ingredients of that chord. So you could play that note, that note, that note, that note. Okay, so that's all that means. And the playing the changes thing happens when that chord changes to the new chord, say a D7, your choice of notes now becomes a short list of ingredients in that D7 chord, and you play those rather than any others. And so what happens is you get this sense, even just listening to the solo playing, you can hear the changes kind of implied through the note selection of the soloist. And so that's what we're going to do today. It's going to be super simple because I've had a lot of requests from people going, well, how do I start? Well, this is a good place to start. If you're one of those players who is currently messing around with the pentatonics, maybe just even shape 1, and you're kind of noodling up and down, but it's okay, but it doesn't sound like a solo, this is the place to start to make your solo playing sound more sophisticated. Now I'm going to keep it super simple, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to have a blues progression in A. The chords will be A7, D7, and E7. And so in the first instance, we're going to target some specific notes in each chord. In fact, we're going to start with targeting just one. That one being the root note of each of the chords. So for the A7, I'm going to target this note. That's at the 5th fret of the top E string. That's our root, that's an A. When we move to the D7 chord, I'm going to target this note, D note, and I'm playing that at the 7th fret on the G string. And when it comes to the E7, I'm going to target this note, which is an E note, and it's on the 5th fret of the B string. So for the A7 chord, the 1 chord in the blues progression, we're targeting this note. For the 4 chord, we're targeting this note. And for the 5 chord, which is the E7, we're targeting this note. And when I say targeting, I mean we're just going to try and land on it, maybe play it a few more times, a bit more often than any of the other notes we might play. So if we wanted to play something over the 1 chord, it might sound like this. Now I know I did put in a non-scale note, okay, but I'm trying to make it a little more musical without kind of putting in too many things that you might not be familiar with. But just see it as a slur, like a slide in from a note below, you know. Okay, so that's going to be our target note, and you might play something like... Then we come to the D7, we go... targeting that note mostly. Back to the A7. Then the E7, remember it's this note here. D7. And that obviously heading to the E7 note for the turnaround. So that's just using the root notes. So that's kind of level 1, is just getting used to hitting those notes in the scale at the time those notes are most relevant. And the time those notes are most relevant, because they're the root notes, you want to be hitting them at the same time the chord is played, the relevant root note to the chord, okay? Now, next level is we start to get a little more sophisticated and focus on some more notes. Now, this is not really scale stuff. And I know a lot of people are thinking, what scale can I play over all this? Or they're thinking, it's a blues progression. I can play the minor pentatonic over everything. I know it's a one size fits all. That scale will do me good. And yes, it will. But pretty much every student I get, every request I get, every person I meet who's a player, they will tell me that they started down that path and now can't really get out of the boxes. They can't really think beyond pentatonics. And, it's actually was useful for a period of time, but now it's actually become a problem for them. So the breakthrough for me as a soloist was when I realized it wasn't at all about scales and it was all about chords. Now you right now have enough chord knowledge to play some awesome solos, but you just got to stop thinking that solos are built from scales and thinking about scale shapes. You've got to think of chords and chord shapes. And I know you're really comfortable with that because you've been playing chords for a long time. Probably out of all the things on the guitar that you've been playing, scales, arpeggios, chords are the first thing you learn, and so therefore it's the thing that you've been playing the longest. So you can be confident, okay, that you've got enough knowledge to do this. So what's the next level? The next level is to focus on some of the other ingredients in the chord. Now, the strongest notes in a chord are the first, the third, and the fifth. So if you don't know what the first and third and the fifth of a particular chord is, you have to know your major scale. So let's use the A7 for example. We want to know the first, the third, and the fifth. Well, the first is obviously the root note. Okay. The third, you just have to count up 1, 2, 3. Okay. And there's your third. Keep in mind though, we don't often play the third down there when we solo because it's quite low. We'll probably play it an octave higher, which will be this note on the G string at the 6th fret. Okay, and we want the fifth. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, this note is the 5. It's the fifth of A7, okay? It also appears here on the 5th fret of the B string. So those were our 1, 3, and 5 of the A. Now let's look at the 1, 3, and 5 of the D. So here's our D7. So the D note here is obviously our 1, it's our root. We can play it here, which is one of the notes we're targeting at the 7th fret of the G string. Okay, our 3, 1, 2, 3. 3 is a really good one to be emphasizing because it's an important interval. If it's a major third, it's a major type chord. If it's a minor third, it's a minor chord. And so that particular note, that particular interval is responsible for deciding a chord's tonality, and therefore it's quite significant. So we could play it here, but we're also playing it here an octave higher at the 7th fret on the B string. And the 5th, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5 is the top E on the 5th fret. So that's the choices you could make for the D7, and then for the E7 you've got the root itself, which is here on the 7th fret of the A, but we're playing it an octave higher at the 5th fret of the B string. We've got the 3. The 3 is a good one, and that occurs here at the 4th fret of the top E. Interestingly, just 1 fret below the root of our A7. Okay, and then finally The 5 of the E chord is here at the 7th fret on the top E. So those are our choices. So once, in kind of pass number 1, level 1, we just play the root notes to kind of get used to landing a specific note in our scale, if you're still thinking scales, but just try and think of it as notes in the chord. And then level 2 will be to target one of the other notes as well, so the 3rd or the 5th. So instead of that's all mostly around the root of the A7, we want to maybe introduce the 3rd, so we can go. Okay, that's the 3rd there. Or we could go, and that's the 5th. So that's good for the A7. When we come into the D, you know, you heard me hit there. Gives it a certain, difference rather than your minor blues choices. And then obviously when we're heading to the E7, so you've hit that note from the E, and that's how we do it. Okay, if you ever wonder, geez, what notes can I play, what scale can I play over all these different chords, I think you're asking yourself the wrong question. The right question, in my opinion, is what notes do the chords in the progression provide me with, so I can make a short list of those I can choose from to play. So if you ever wonder, what's good to play over an A7, the answer is the notes of the A7. You literally copy the notes that are played, but instead of playing them as a strum, you take them, rearrange them, and play them one at a time, and make a melody, make a lick, make a solo. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up. If you enjoyed this, if you'd like to hear more from me, then please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. This is Phil from 15 Minute Guitar Practice, saying bye for now. Cheers.